Welcome to Be One with me as we journey together to be the best we can. Today, we'll explore the top 10 lessons the ego teaches before it lets go. The ego isn't your enemy. It's your greatest teacher. It's the part of you that insists on control, seeks validation, and fights to be seen. Yet, within its stubbornness lies wisdom waiting to be uncovered. Before the ego releases its grip, it puts us through trials meant to awaken humility, compassion, and awareness. When we meet those lessons consciously, we transform from living in resistance to flowing with life. This isn't about destroying the ego. It's about understanding it, seeing through its illusions, while honoring the lessons it came to teach. The ego's stories reveal where we still hold fear, where we still crave recognition, and where we haven't yet trusted love. So, let's explore 10 of the most profound lessons the ego teaches before it finally loosens its hold and allows the true self to emerge. Here are the top 10 lessons the ego teaches before it lets go. 1. The lesson of control. You can't force flow. The ego believes that safety comes from control of outcomes, people, and even emotions. But life's greatest peace comes when you stop gripping so tightly. The ego eventually teaches us that trying to control everything is a form of fear disguised as order. Here's a reflection question. Where in your life are you mistaking control for security? And a practice. Choose one area today where you can consciously surrender. Maybe let someone else lead, skip a plan, or release a rigid expectation. Feel how that space invites trust. 2. The lesson of validation. You already are enough. The ego, it really thrives on being seen, admired, and acknowledged. But as we grow and evolve, we learn that external validation never actually fills the inner void. The lesson isn't to stop wanting to be appreciated. It's to realize that your worth was never dependent on anyone's applause. So here's something to reflect on. What are you still trying to prove, and to whom? And as a little practice, each time you accomplish something, just take a quiet moment to affirm yourself before sharing it with others. Let your own recognition be the first reward. 3. The lesson of comparison. No one else is on your path. The ego constantly measures itself against others. It compares timelines, achievements, and appearances. But honestly, spiritual growth is not a race. It's a revelation. The moment you stop comparing, you really start living authentically. Here's a reflection question. Who do you compare yourself to most? And what does that reveal about your unhealed self-perception? And for practice, every time you catch yourself comparing, try to replace it with gratitude for what you're learning and who you're becoming. 4. The lesson of defensiveness. You don't need to be right to be at peace. The ego loves to defend its position. It fears being wrong because it equates being wrong with being unworthy. But humility opens doors that pride keeps closed. When you stop needing to be right, you start hearing truth. So here's something to think about. What arguments or opinions drain your energy but feed your pride? And as a practice, the next time you feel triggered to prove yourself, just pause. Ask yourself, what's more important, being right or being real? 5. The lesson of possession is this. You can't own what's meant to be shared. The ego, it clings, whether it's to people, status, or things, believing that possession somehow equals permanence. But honestly, love, freedom, and truth can't be held. They really have to flow. When the ego finally learns to loosen its grip, we rediscover abundance. So, here's something to think about. What are you afraid to lose? And what would remain if you did? And if you're up for it, try this practice. Give something away today. It could be an item, your time, or even your attention. Just do it without expecting anything in return. Notice how, when you give, it actually opens you up instead of emptying you. 6. The lesson of identity goes like this. You are not your story. The ego, it builds itself around all these narratives, who you've been, what's happened, and how you've survived. But awakening, it means realizing that your story isn't your essence. You are actually the awareness witnessing it all, not just the character in the play. So here's a reflection question. What story about yourself are you still telling that limits your potential? And for practice, try rewriting that story from the perspective of your soul. Instead of saying, I was hurt, right, I grew wiser. Instead of, I failed, right, I learned. 7. The lesson of achievement is pretty powerful. You don't need to earn love. The ego believes that love is transactional, that it has to be earned, proven, or deserved. But the soul, it just knows that love simply is. As you evolve, you start to see that chasing achievement just for love is actually a form of spiritual exhaustion. So, here's something to reflect on. What do you believe you must achieve before you are worthy of rest or love? And if you can, take one day to celebrate yourself without earning it. Rest as an act of worthiness. Let stillness, honestly, be your medal. 8. The lesson of fear. Every fear hides an unmet need for love. The ego's foundation is fear. Fear of loss, rejection, failure, insignificance. But when you meet those fears with compassion instead of judgment, they dissolve into understanding. Every fear is simply a call for healing. So here's a reflection question. What fear runs the loudest in your life right now? And for practice, try speaking to it like a child. Ask what it needs and offer reassurance from your higher self. Fear really does soften when it feels seen. 9. The lesson of separation. You are never alone. The ego sees itself as separate from others, from source, from purpose. But honestly, the closer we get to awareness, the more we sense our oneness with all things. Connection doesn't come from needing others. It's realized by remembering we were never divided to begin with. Here's something to reflect on. When do you feel most separate from others? And what would happen if you softened that wall? For practice, engage in one act of connection today. Eye contact, gratitude, forgiveness. Each one is a bridge back to wholeness. 10. The lesson of letting go. To lose yourself is to find yourself. When the ego finally tires of striving, defending, and clinging, it surrenders. Not out of defeat, but recognition. What remains after ego fades isn't emptiness, but peace. It's the return to the true self, the one that has been quietly guiding you all along. Here's a reflection question. What version of yourself are you ready to release? For practice, in meditation, visualize shedding the layers of fear, pride, and judgment. Whisper to yourself, I release what no longer serves who I am becoming. Remember this, the ego is not your curse. It's your classroom. Every lesson it brings, control, validation, comparison, fear, is really just an invitation to return to your true nature. When you stop fighting the ego and start listening to it, you discover that, honestly, it was never trying to destroy you. It was trying to wake you up. In learning to see through its illusions, you reclaim your essence, humble, loving, present, and free. The moment you thank your ego for its service, you begin the greatest act of liberation, living from soul instead of survival. And that, truly, is the lesson it came here to teach. Understand the ego's hidden wisdom on the path towards surrender and humility. Subscribe to this channel. More is coming from the heart for the soul. Remember, a smile can make someone's day. The right words may change their life. Thank you, I love you. Be one with me.